What's up, guys? We are back with another review, taking a look at one of the retail releases for the new G.I. Joe classified line. We're taking a look today at Roadblock. So this brand new line has some pretty amazing packaging, honestly. I'm really digging everything they've got going on here. There are some changes between figures with art style and things that run down the side paneling, but the general idea here is really cool. So you've got a figure there in the window with the Joe logo down there on the bottom, some artwork of Roadblock in the corner, and then you've got some sort of stats of him that run down one side, artwork that runs down the other side of him, and then the back of the box has a really fantastic piece of artwork that showcases a lot of the figures that we get in the Wave 1 in their various styles, alongside maybe other figures that we might be getting down the road, and kind of a hint at what they might look like in this line as well. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here he is out of the package, our classified series Roadblock figure. So this is one of two that definitely has been kind of divisive, I'd say, among fans, among collectors out there, because he does look a little different. He is not classic G.I. Joe, but I do think that there are some good callbacks here. Again, you know, I'm going to say it ahead of time. I am not the most diehard G.I. Joe fan, not the most diehard by any means collector. So, you know, if you are heavy into G.I. Joe, your opinion is probably going to be different than mine when it comes to this guy. So I am pretty happy with this figure, though. I think he's pretty cool looking, and he honestly moves around pretty well. So in kind of contrast to how I've described the Ghostbusters that we've been getting, you know, where they're very much, as I think of them now, Black Series figures, these guys definitely feel very much like Marvel Legends. A lot of the articulation looks the same, the way they move. Of course, they do have their own little flair. He's very similar to Snake Eyes. So, you know, very Marvel Legends inspired, I suppose, in terms of construction, but still they seem to be their own thing because of some of the new stuff they're throwing in. So let's take a look, see how he moves around. His head can look up. It's on a ball peg with a hinge, and he can look down pretty far. The neck is also articulated, though, so it does move. He doesn't really have a lot of bobble, but he does have full rotation. Arms go out at the shoulders. They rotate all the way around. There is a butterfly joint in there. It works, but it only goes so far because he has this rubbery piece over his torso, but it does help him hold his gun. You've got a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, of course, and then you've got a lateral hinge and rotation on both wrists. He does have the same kind of torso articulation that Snake Eyes does, but he has this big rubbery piece, so it does get in the way. He's got the ball pegged waist, so he goes backwards, forwards, side to side, and then he rotates all the way around, but there is, and I can't really see if I can show it in there, there is an ab crunch in there, though. It's just hard to really use it. There's like a bare body torso under there, so he's got the crunch, but at the same time, he really has a hard time using it just because of how they engineered this to have the overlay. So it works, but it's going to take some doing. The legs are a slight drop-down joint, not much because he does have such big thighs, but they are drop-down, and then they go all the way out. They do kick forward, they kick backwards a little bit. You've got your thigh cut, we've got double-jointed knees, and then you've got a boot cut. You've got rocker, and you've got hinges. The hinges work really good on the back, but they don't go so far forward because he's got this little lip with the shin armor here. So that's maybe the one negative from the waist down. He does move really well, though. The big hindrance is, of course, the torso just being kind of encumbered just based on the fact that there's a big rubber sleeve sitting on it. But he does have all the articulation that Snake Eyes does. You've just got to kind of work at it. Now, as far as the aesthetics go, for the most part, I'm pretty happy with this guy. There are a few things that maybe clash in terms of color scheme or kind of stand out and look a little bit more gaudy. I'm not going to say Fortnite-y because I don't really think it's going down that road. I understand why some people think that, but I'm not really one of those. I'm not in that camp, not yet anyway. But I do think that he looks pretty cool. There are, of course, some callbacks to the V2 figure, the vintage figure. Again, not my thing, but I do have some familiarity with classic Joes. So this is, you know, that green vest with the red stripe that runs down. Although I don't think the similarities go too much further than that. He is a pretty big figure, so he definitely is going to stack up pretty well to the rest of the Joes. He's definitely the biggest one in this first wave. I think Destro might be just about as tall, but he's got some bulk to him. This rubber vest does help to kind of flesh him out a little bit, and the paint apps on it are pretty solid. If I had one area that I don't like, it's this little patch of brown here. It's not exactly straight, but the rest of it looks pretty good. I like the star and the red accents with this stripe that runs backward, and then all these little gold accents work really well. There is a slot for one of his accessories, the knife in the vest, so you've got some weapon storage right there. He does have this massive tampoed lion tattoo on his arm, which works honestly pretty well, unless of course you're swiveling that bicep and then it's going to move, but when it's lined up, it looks really good. It's surprisingly clean, so that one looks really good. You've got some kind of tactical cargo style pants down here. No paint on them until you get to what I think might be one of the biggest areas of concern for people is the gold on some of these figures. So he does have a gold knee pad and some gold and red shin guards, and they do definitely kind of stand out from the rest of the figure. I don't think they are by any means the best part, but I don't really have too much of an issue with them. I'd like to see what someone does as far as repainting those, maybe to be, I don't know, silver or even black or something like that. But they do look pretty good, and I think the sizing on this figure is nice. He definitely has some heft when he's in your hands, and I'll do a size comparison to some other figures in different lines as well as Snake Eyes here in a minute. But of course, you've also got to talk about the photoreal on this guy because he does have a photo printed face. But what I don't really know is what they're actually going for as far as this face or this head. I'm not sure if it's one specific look. I'm not sure if it's an amalgamation of looks, something like that. But I do like the finished product here. The eyes are maybe the best to tell as far as photo printing, and I think it's pretty nicely done. The eyebrows are nice and crisp. Same with that facial hair, and it's just a good sculpt. I mean, it very much fits the body as far as size goes. Maybe if I had one real gripe, it might be that I'd like to have seen him with some sort of an expression because he's got, you know, this massive gun as far as an accessory goes. Maybe give him one crazy gritting of the teeth look or something like that, just to show that he's really throwing it down or anything like that. But otherwise, as far as kind of a standard head sculpt, I think it looks pretty good outside of the fact that, you know, it might be a little bit glossy at times, but he is, of course, under some pretty harsh lighting right now. And then, like I mentioned, here are a few size comparisons within and outside of his own line. So we've got Snake Eyes here to give you an idea of what he looks like next to another classified figure. And then we've got the Mando from the Black Series. Let's pull those out. And we've got Wolverine from Marvel Legends, so a slightly smaller Legends figure. And then we've got Winston from the Plasma series, so a slightly smaller, non-6-inch scale style figure. And then maybe let's throw in just something that's a little bit bigger, like a Mythic Legions figure, to see that he's definitely a little bit dwarfed in that regard. But he does look pretty good compared to other true 1/12 scale figures. Now, as far as accessories goes, Roadblock has 3, but technically it's really only 2 because 2 of them go together to make this gun. So to start with, we've got the knife that I've touched on previously. So it's just a standard little knife that pegs into that slot in his vest. It's done up in a little slightly metallic gray paint, but he doesn't really hold it all that well because of how wide set his hands are for being able to grip the gun. It kind of just sort of sits in his hand. You can pose it just fine, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't exactly have a very tight grip on it. The big thing here, the star of the show, of course, is his big kind of like railgun thing here, which is pretty cool. It's obviously been kind of a divisive accessory for a lot of fans out there because it's not a real world style gun. I don't personally care about that all that much. It looks cool. It's humongous. I mean, it's just as tall as the figure itself. There's a tremendous amount of plastic here and honestly a decent amount of paint on it. You've got a lot of blue accents. There's some translucent blue here in the mouth, blue accents here, more of that same kind of color that we had with the knife, and then some red accents, obviously. The little magazine energy thing comes out of it. So this is that third accessory. So it's just a little brick that slots into this, magazine clip holder there. He does have a couple ways to hold it. So you've got this top grip here, and then you've got the side grip, but you've also got a standard trigger here. So you've got 2 different ways of having him hold it, and he does hold it really well. I haven't had any issues with stability or getting it in his hands or anything like that. So if you can get past the fact that it is, of course, a very sci-fi techie style gun, it does look pretty cool, and I mean, it adds a lot of bulk to this guy. So overall, I think we've got a pretty solid figure here. Again, I'm not a G.I. Joe purist or a diehard G.I. Joe collector, so this thing is just what it is to me. It's a pretty cool looking figure, and I like the way he turned out. I do think he has a great size and shelf presence. Paint applications for the most part are really good. He's got that crazy tattoo, and he does have some classic callbacks, but of course he is very much his own thing. My one real negative is the fact that the ab crunch is definitely negated by that rubber overlay. It just gets in the way. There's not much more to say about that one. He does have that pretty crazy gun, which despite being some crazy weird futuristic nonsense, I think looks pretty cool and will definitely stand out amongst a lot of other figures on your shelf. So yeah, I think this is a pretty cool entry in the G.I. Joe line. So that's going to do it for this look at the Classified Series Roadblock. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.